My name is Jeremy Collier. I am the founder of Steam Powered Dreams Publishing and also the creator of Writers Helping Writers Group, which is what I'm doing this video for. So a little about myself. I've been writing for most of my life, for over 20 years. And really, my passion is writing everything. And more recently, I realized my passion just isn't writing, but helping other writers as well. And that's why I created Steam Powered Dreams, which our motto is indie writers. For indie writers by indie writers. And we're a publishing company that caters to those of you who like a lot of the benefits of indie writing, but don't necessarily want to go through the work or don't know how to go through the work. We provide a lot of free content, and actually we started a new series called Second Draft, where we talk a lot about editing, beta reading, and other things like that. That started this week on our website. And the reason I created Writers Helping Writers is for a similar reason. I want to help writers, and I want to find other people so that I can actually create a group, a small group, because I don't want to grow it too large, that are catering to each other. Meaning that, we have a lot of helpful people, a lot of beta readers, a lot of editors, and a lot of writers come together in a small niche group just for the sole reason of helping each other. So that's why I created Writers Helping Writers, and that's why I do these live events. So without any more than that, hi Jody, welcome. Without any more than that, I think we're going to get into the subject. The subject this week is actually one that is personal to my heart because, and I know a lot of people in this group, because being scammed when you don't know better as a writer or any artist can be taken more personal than other things. You get scammed when you go take your car in, or you get scammed when you go to the store and buy something. Those things are like, it's like, oh, well, that sucks that happened to me. But when it has to do with your art, it really feels more like it hits home. It's personal. So when someone really scams you, it can really hurt you, and it can really affect the way you do your art. And with writing in particular, I mean, it takes to get a full, 100,000+ word manuscript. Some people take their whole lifetime to do this. And imagine how any of us would feel if we spent 20, 30, 40 years on a manuscript only to get scammed out of that, And it's not always about the money that you get scammed out of. Sometimes it's other things, such as your publishing rights. I mean, there's publishing companies that will take your rights from you and never publish your book, but yet you paid them. And that's the kind of thing that I want to help writers in particular avoid, because I think that there is a lot of great publishers out there. There's a lot of great people out there. And, the key is just to know who they are and which ones to avoid and which ones to kind of gravitate towards. So with that said, I want to talk a little about the different types of publishers. For those of you who have already watched the other live videos I've done, I've talked a lot about publishing and what publishers are. So it's going to be very brief. I'm going to keep it to 4 main types of publishers. And these are my definitions. This is in no way the law. You can find a lot of other definitions online, but this is how I define it. You have the big publishers. And these are ones like Penguin and such that are big business. They're, they make so much money, and they take in such little books compared to how many are submitted to them. They only take the top 1%. Actually, I think it's even less than that if I remember. I think it's like 0.1%. And they tend to do almost everything for you except nowadays the marketing. And then you have what I call the middle press or medium press. And these are ones that started as small press. They started as small mom and pop type of publishers and have grown to where now they kind of are more picky about what they take, and they tend to have a little more weight in the industry. And then you have small press, who are either in it for the hobby or in it for the love of publishing. And these kind of people tend to take less from you, but you also get less from them. You get a lot less marketing, you get a lot less reach. If they provide editing, which not all of them do, if they provide editing, it's usually lower quality editing. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, because someone who charges 1 cent a word compared to someone who charges 3 cents a word, really the 1 cent a word could be better. And that's all I mean by lower end editing is cheaper editing. But again, that's not always a bad thing. The fourth kind is vanity publishing. And that term actually encompasses a large amount of publishers. And the legit and the good vanity publishers have kind of been lost in the cracks because of all the bad vanity publishing. And Steam Power Dreams, just to throw that out there, is it doesn't fit in any of these categories. I'm calling it a new age publisher, and there's a few other publishers like it, but we're the first of our kind to do a lot of what we're planning to be doing with revolving royalties and upfront versus contracted services and things like that. Now, I mentioned that vanity publishing has a large lump sum of different publishers built in. You have your legit vanity publishing, and that's companies that will be like, yes, we will take your book. You pay for everything, and we will publish it for you. But a lot of times, but with these publishers, they're not going to take every single book. They're actually going to do what mainstream publishers do. They're going to read it over. They're going to look at it, and they're going to be like, look, we like your book, we want to publish it. Or we don't like your book, we don't want to publish it. Next, you have your vanity publishing that is literally like they will publish anything. A lot of times they won't even look at your books, and they'll just publish it the way it is if you want them to. And then you have your, but that usually does require you buying their editing. And then you have the low end, and a lot of times they only do it to have your rights, and that's the scams. That's the ones that will buy your book and never even look inside and don't care if you edited it. They will just put it on Amazon for you because you paid them. But the truth is that that's free. Anybody can do that. And the last type of publisher that kind of gets lumped into vanity publishing is these websites that do author services. And I'll talk more about that later, but basically what it is the website is created, the company is created around the idea that you can buy services from them, such as editing and cover design and formatting and things like that. But then a lot of times they'll also offer, hey, we can also distribute your book for you. So they're not saying, hey, we're a publisher. They're saying, we will do it for a fee. Now, a lot of times these get bad rap because they are charging you to distribute your book, but at the same time, they're not claiming to be a publisher. A lot of times they won't even put their name on your book. They just do it for you. And I don't think this is a bad thing. A lot of people don't have the time or patience to learn how to do all of this indie publishing things. So, to them, paying $200 or $300 for distribution might be worth it. And there's no problem with that if that's what you want. All right, so let's start talking a little bit more about vanity publishing. I define vanity publishing as a publisher who takes money up front for services and distribution of your book. The key word here is they take the money up front. Okay, they tend not to take any royalties, and the good ones anyway. You retain 100% of your rights. This is very important. You have 100% royalty, 100% of your rights. And again, a lot of times they won't even put their name on your book. It's just they're doing it for you. You pay them a fee and they put it up there. But lately I've noticed that more vanity publishing has actually gone and started charging you not only upfront, but also a fee. And because they basically say that it's a maintenance fee or ongoing fee that, $1,000 you paid them only covers the first, what would that be? 500 books sold. After you sell 500 books, all of a sudden they're asking you for money, usually in royalties. So all of a sudden, instead of getting $2 a book, you're getting $1 a book or $1.50 a book. And that's just not right because you already paid them up front. Those people, that's the kind of like the mid vanity publishing. You should definitely avoid those because a lot of times, they don't even tell you that. It's in the contract, but they don't talk to you about it until after you've already signed. It might be 2 years later, you finally made that money, and all of a sudden you notice your checks are smaller, your royalties are smaller. And you're wondering why? Well, it's because of that fee that they didn't really talk to you about. The difference between vanity publishing and an author service company, again, is that a vanity publisher promotes themselves as a publisher first, where author service company will promote themselves as a services with distribution, with distribution not being their main focus. So that's vanity publishing in a nutshell. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of vanity publishing. Okay, so we have the question that a lot of people ask, and a lot of people really, if you search online about vanity publishing, even if you just put vanity publishing, you'll get a lot of people asking, is vanity publishing a scam? And the simple answer is no, it's not. At least not all of them. There are a lot of legit companies out there that promise to take your book, and if you pay them completely, they will publish it and they'll do the work. Now, looking at it from the point of view of someone who is working, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and they have they have the money to spend. Let's say they knew it was going to cost them, so they've been saving enough money to get their stuff done for a long time. Vanity publishing is not the worst way to go. If you're working that many hours and you don't have the time to learn and maintain and do all the stuff with your book, then it's a good idea, or not a good idea, but it's an idea to look into vanity publishing. But again, there are so many bad vanity publishers, you have to be very, very careful. In the end, vanity publishing is more about the business than the writer, and that's important to remember. What do vanity publishers look for? Well, the truth is not very much. Most vanity publishers are not genre specific. They are not word count specific. They don't care that your main character goes through a lot of problems. All they care about is that your book is going to sell at least a little bit. Because and a lot of vanity publishing doesn't even care about that. If they take money up front with no royalties ever, then they don't care that you they don't care if your book sells, because what happened, you already paid them. So if your book doesn't sell a copy, they've still made their money. You haven't made anything. You've only paid out, and that's the good vanity publishing. Like I said, the other ones will just take advantage of you the whole way from point A to point Z. A lot of times they won't even require you to have a certain quality level, as I mentioned before. Some of them will require that you either have their editing, or that your book is of a certain quality to print. And this is especially true for higher end vanity publishing companies that get more submissions than they can actually take in every month. Because a lot of times they'll be looking for their name recognition, word of mouth, as where other vanity publishing aren't really worried about that. Last thing about vanity publishing in general is what makes a bad vanity publisher, and three things. And I'll keep it really simple for this. They take your rights away. Meaning your print rights, your ebook rights, whatever. They're probably not a good vanity publisher. They're just trying to take advantage of you. If they're requiring too much money up front, meaning if they're doing editing for you and just copy editing, and they're charging you more than $1,500 for a 100,000 word book, or they're charging you more than, I'd say, $4,000 or $5,000 for developmental editing, then they're probably taking advantage of you. And last is royalties. Because you're paying all the money up front, you should not have to give them very much royalties. Now, this isn't to say that there's not that you shouldn't give them any royalties, because some of the small and medium presses do charge you for editing. But you really have to gauge. If you spend, let's say, $2,000 on editing, and then they want 20% of your sales, then you're going to kind of go, okay, that's not too bad. But if they're talking about 30, 40, 50%, then you're taking advantage of you. All right, so let's talk a little about traditional publishing now, the good, the bad, and ugly of traditional publishing. There's this whole, I guess you could call it a misnomer that all publishers, all real publishers, registered publishers, are legit and they're not scams. Well, that's just as not as true as all vanity publishers are bad. In fact, many of them hide behind the name of being a publisher just to scam you, and that's really sad. While a traditional publisher tends to be more author oriented than vanity publishing, they still are a business and they still need enough money to survive. So the same question about vanity publishers: what do traditional publishers look for? Well, legit traditional publishers will have very specific requirements. Most publishers will have genre requirements. And even if the big name owns 5 different publishers, there's a reason for that. It's because one deals in science fiction and fantasy, one deals in mysteries, and one deals in whatever else. But most of the time, you will have genres that are very specific, word count or page count that is extremely specific. I know a lot of publishers won't take any manuscripts that are less than 80,000 words or more than 120,000 words. And this range, that's just the numbers that I recently saw. So it does change between publishers. Some only publish, between 50 and 80,000 words. Some are science fiction and fantasy who only publish more than 120,000 words. And this is less true if it's ebook only, because the reason on the word count and page count limit is because of physical books. Costs basically per page to print. Let's see. Most important thing that they look for is quality. A legit publishing company will require editing. This doesn't always mean that you have to go through them for editing, but it is required that you have professional editing. And a lot of publishers nowadays, especially small and medium publishers, are actually going to the point where they're actually telling agents, and they're telling people who submit that you need to get this edited before we even look at it, and that's becoming a more larger trend, and that's why you're seeing more and more independent authors, or independent editors popping up for professionally or traditionally published authors. Yeah, so it's like the quality is extremely important. So I wrote, another thing, even if you've had professional editing done, if you get picked by a publisher, expect them to send it to their editor. Expect to have to do a rewrite. I'm not talking about a full, 100% rewrite, but they're gonna copy edit it, and they're gonna give you suggestions, and they're gonna tell you that they want to change this and they want to change that. That's because they're looking for specific things that work well with their publishing company. Now, that's something a lot of authors don't think about. When they're shopping around for publishing companies, they might send it out to 100 publishers who all looking for science fiction and fantasy. But I can guarantee you, each one of those 100 have a different niche that they want your book to fit. And it might be something as small as they want the main character to they want the main character to have extra emotion, or they want the bad guy to be really evil and not lovable, and these things can be very, very specific like that, and sometimes they can be story changing, and sometimes they're just small things. But no matter what, when you get accepted by a publisher, even if you've already had professional publishing done, they're going to send it past their editor. Through independent editor or professional editor, because it increases your chances of a publisher picking up the story. Let's see. Let's see. And it's always beneficial to have more people eyes on it anyway. So having their editor look at it is only beneficial for you. Now, with a traditional publisher, be it small, medium, or the big publishers, you're giving up your publishing rights. Most, if not all, actually I can't say that, all of the big names, but probably most of the medium and small names will require you to give up all of your rights. And you might be asking, well, what rights do I have as an author? It's my book. It's one right. Well, it's actually not. You actually have a ton of rights. You have your ebook rights, you have your print book rights, you have your audiobook rights, and then believe it or not, each time the book is translated into a different language, that is a different rights. So you can imagine how giving up all your rights to a publisher who only wants to publish an ebook, you're basically giving up, 75% of your rights, 80% of your rights. And that's really not cool. Now, some publishers will be like, look, we want to do, physical book and ebook. And then if it does good, we want to translate it into German. Germany's a big name right now. As well as eventually put it in an audiobook. Now, if they're telling you that, and that's written into your contract, then giving up all the other languages, that's fine. That's a good publisher. That's a publisher who's looking out for you. Even better are publishers who say, right now we only want to buy the ebook rights, and once we see how the ebook does, then we want to buy your physical rights. And once we see how that does, and we might even want to do an audiobook. But they're different contracts for each right. And I think that's the best way to go about it. But all publishers, small, medium, and large, I guess, will require you to give up your rights. And a lot of these are lifetime. Some of the smaller ones will give you shorter contracts, like 10 years, 5 years. But most of them, a lot of them are, you're giving up the rights for life. So that means, if your book doesn't do good, but good enough for them to keep the rights, because they can give it back to you. They can be like, we don't want it anymore. But you can't say you want it back without their approval. But let's say you have a book that's doing okay, and this publisher picks it up, and it's doing okay. It's making them a few dollars a month. It's making you a few dollars a month. So, they want to keep it. But you don't want to keep it any longer because you have this other book through a different publisher who's doing twice as much work for you, and your book's selling twice as good. Well, the first publisher can say, no, thank you. We're going to keep your book, and it's ours for life. So that's another thing you really got to look on. And that's not a scam. That's just how publishing works. But it is something I encourage people to look out for. Let's see, what else? So a major publisher will provide, okay, so let's talk about royalties with publishing. A major publisher will provide you with top-of-the-line editing, line cover design, top-of-the-line formatting, and top-of-the-line printing. But it comes at a cost, because if you did all that yourself, that would cost upwards of $10,000 for your book. So to them, they're going to charge you so much of your royalties, it goes straight to them. And this is big names. I'm talking about like people like Stephen King. They sell so much so they make enough money, but their publishing company is taking up to 98%. And again, this isn't a scam. This is just the way it is. Even the medium and small press usually take at least 35%, all the way up to about 80 or 90%. And this is because they want to recoup the costs. And then they want to make money. But the problem here is, the person who actually created it is getting less money than they should for it. And this is another thing that I hope to solve with Steam Powered Dreams, with the revolving royalty rate. Because basically, if you go through Steam Powered Dreams and you submit your book and we publish you, you might start at us earning 35% or 40%. But the more your book sells, the more you earn. So if your book starts selling pretty good, all of a sudden you're making 90% and we're only making 10%. And that's part of the new age publishing, because I don't believe that the author should make less money than the publisher. The author did all the work. Even if the editor does work that's included in the royalties, the author still did vastly more work on the book than the editor did. So watch out for royalties. All right, so now we're going to get into the meat of the broadcast, and that is what to watch out for with scams. All right, so let's start with contracts. If you have ever signed a contract, then you probably know that there's two types of contracts. There's those that are between 1 and 5 pages long. And there are those that are 30, 40 pages long, and you're just like, even if I sat here for 3-4 hours, there's no way I could read this, let alone understand it. Contracts are an easy way to get scammed. And I know that's funny because you actually have a contract. But it's just as easy to get scammed with a contract as without. Now, without a contract, meaning you don't sign anything, all you do is you pay them. That is an agreement. But the thing is, without a contract, the agreement can change at any time. And it can change on your end too, but unless you want to pay for lawyers, it's not going to work out in your favor. I'm not going to, say any names or anything, but I recently heard a story about someone who signed a contract or who didn't have a contract for their work, and it was for cover design, and when they got it back, they got the final result, and it had bad formatting, wrong font, misspelled words, and it was just really bad. And what happened was the deal was for that was it. You got what you got. And the person was like, well, yeah, I understand. I get what I get, but at least you got to do it right. And then the designer was like, sorry, that's what you get. So that can happen without a contract, but it can happen just as easy with a contract. If you have an overly complicated contract that has a lot of big words, big legal words, get someone professional to read over it. Do not sign that contract until you are sure that you're getting your way. A contract should work for both parties, for the client and the, in this case, author. It should work both ways. It should be a mutually beneficial contract. Never sign a contract that's one-sided, even for yourself, because a lot of those times, those can be scams too. Terms inside of contract can really affect stuff too. And remember, you have your rights. So if you get a contract and you don't like one of the terms, if you don't like that they say that that they'll take 2 weeks, and if it goes longer than 2 weeks, then they want extra money. If you don't like that term, then you have the right to tell them, hey, I don't like that term. And if they say too bad, then you have the right to walk away. As where if once you sign it, then you no longer have that right to walk away. Some terms are the same across the board. For example, a lot of independent editors will tell you, if you hire them for copy editing, you get one pass-through. And that means that, they go through meticulously one full time. They don't go back and do it a second time. They do it one time from beginning to end. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually very common, because an average copywriter only makes between $800 to $1,500, and it usually takes them at least a couple weeks to do it. So it's not that bad of a deal. Fees, and this one's kind of up for debate, and even I kind of don't feel like the traditional way of fees really apply any longer. But basically, there was a time when 100% of costs, from editing to design to printing and marketing, was all covered by a publisher. Times have changed, and a lot of times, unless you're a big name, you get very little marketing. That's just the way it is. If you don't have a social reach, then you need to. Then you probably won't get much marketing. So you get charged for a lot of things. If you want them to promote you, you might get charged. If you want them to edit for you, you might get charged. The thing is, how much should you be charged really depends on how much royalty you're getting. Again, a small press might tell you, pay me, let's say $1,000 up front, and we'll do your editing, and then we'll take 20% of your royalties. That's a pretty good deal. Because again, most small presses are going to take 30, 40, 50% of your royalties if they don't charge you anything up front. If your book becomes a bestseller, you're going to make back that $1,000 in a few months. Becoming a bestseller, that's not easy, but you get my point. So paying fees is really up for debate now, and I'm moving forward very carefully with Steam Powered Dreams, because a lot of people don't agree with paying fees or paying for services, so you got to be very careful. But my advice is, the more you pay up front, the more royalties you should get. And if you're not sure, feel free to contact me and ask me about your contract and your fees and your royalty, and I will make sure I give you the best advice I can. Next, we have direct marketing. A legit publisher will never come to you. It's just the way it is. A legit publisher, unless you're a big name, unless you're someone who's been established, unless you're someone who has a series out and a publisher really likes your series, they will not come to you. This is a great one, an easy one to avoid. If they contact you on Facebook, if they contact you in your email, on any social network, do your research twice, 3 times. Search everywhere, ask around, because there's a good chance that they're scamming. They're trying to scam you. Next, we have the too good to be true offers, and this is there's actually one publisher on the list that I'm going to get to shortly that has that actually does this, and they say you pay nothing up front. And there's no royalty fees, or there's no. I'm sorry, you pay nothing up front, and we keep nothing. So essentially, they're telling you they're publishing your book for absolutely free, for life. Doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. Even as someone who's done freelance publishing, for friends and family, it doesn't work that way. Granted, I don't charge much, but I charge for my time, and no legit company will give you all of their services for absolute. It's just too good to be true. Lack of gatekeeping, and we talked about this, so I won't get too much into it. Is lack of gatekeeping, meaning there has to be that gatekeeper, someone who reads your book and determines if it's good or not. Now, whether or not their opinion is the right opinion, that's up for debate too, but there always should be somebody. Like I said, a lot of vanity publishing, they won't even open your book. They'll just say, yes, we'll publish you, and then charge you, thousands of dollars, or take 90% of your royalty, whatever the thing is, and they'll just pass you through. And a lot of times, those are the writers who get so discouraged and say, and give bad name for indie publishing. And last one is poor editing in their other books. This one might be obvious, but there's 2 ways to figure out if they have poor editing. And there is things you can do about it if you are scammed in this way. If you know the name of the company, look up books and from people who have published or who have been published by them. Look through a few pages. If you see a lot of errors that you would normally pick up, then you know that they're probably just passing it through. If you send your manuscript to an editor or to a publisher, and they send it back to you and they have corrections, but when you go through it yourself, you notice a lot of more corrections that need to be done, then you've probably been scammed. And unfortunately, a lot of times there's nothing you can do about it except for spread the word about that company online and make sure you tell fellow writers that to avoid them. It's a big one because, again, I'm not going to say any names, and I know somebody who was scammed by an editor. And it's really sad to me, and it makes me want to double up my efforts to, in groups like Writers Helping Writers and Steam Power Dreams to really stop that, because I can't stand when that kind of thing happens. So a few tips on before we end this and get to the list of different vanity publishers to avoid and some that you might consider. Just a few tips on ways to avoid being scammed by a publisher. One, make sure there's an understandable contract that is beneficial to both publisher and author. 2, make sure you never pay for distribution. You might have to pay for services, but never pay for distribution. And by distribution, I mean the act of actually taking your book and putting it online, or taking your book and getting it printed. I'm not saying that they should give you a free copy of your printed book, but they should be willing to submit your book to be printed, either print on demand or a physical print, for free. That should never cost, okay? That's the biggest one I can tell you. If you have to pay for distribution, it's not a publishing company, and there's a strong possibility you're being scammed, with the exception of author services websites. Avoid a publisher that isn't willing to budge on odd terms and conditions, or at least, hopefully, if they don't explain themselves. Again, if you have a contract that says, the book will not be published for 6 months from the time of the contract. Well, okay, there has to be a reason for that, and it might be a great reason. So, you ask them, well, I don't like this term, tell me about it. And they're like, oh, it's just part of our contract. Probably want to get out of there because that seems like a scam. Make sure you Google like the publisher name and the word scam, as well as the publisher name and the word reviews. So in other words, something like, I don't want to put this on my own publishing, but Steam Power Dream scam or Steam Power Dream reviews. You will find that there's a lot of people talking good and bad about publishers. One bad review amongst a lot of good reviews probably doesn't mean anything. But if it's opposite, if you see mostly bad reviews, it's definitely something you want to stay away from. Research the length of time the company's been around, as opposed to how many books they've published. This one's a little harder to do because a lot of publishers, vanity publishing, will not put their name on their books. But for traditional publishing, they always do. So, if the company's only been around a year and they've published 800 or 900 books, then they're probably just pushing them through, and it's probably a scam. It's probably a bad sign, definitely. What's next? Research the actual books published. Are a lot of the books at this company published between 0 and 3 stars, or are a lot of them 3 to 5 stars? If most of the books published are an average of 3 stars or under, then it's probably the publisher's fault, and it's probably a scam. And finally, always get a second opinion. If your book has recently been edited by a publisher, have a friend or family member who you know is good with their grammar and their syntax, and have them look over. Preferably someone who has never seen the book before. While getting back a book with no errors is pretty much impossible, you want to get as close to it as you can. You don't want the average person to find errors in your book. Now, again, if they find 1 error or 2 errors in a book, then that's not a big deal. But it's when all of a sudden they find 1 or 2 errors in a chapter, or 5 errors in a chapter, or 10 errors, 2 errors per page. Then you know that you did not get a good edit, and you need to do something about it. You need to fight back. So that's my advice for avoiding scammers. Now, I have looked at a couple specific publishers that I wanted to talk about, 3 of them exactly, and I also have 2 lists of publishers to avoid. So I'm going to go through these real quick. If you hear one that you want to know more about, keep it in mind, and we're going to go to Q&A in about, hopefully I can get through this in about 4 minutes. We're going to go to Q&A. I'm already running long, but should be fine. So first one to avoid at all costs, their name is America Star Books. Okay, so they have recently changed their name, and so it wasn't easy to find good information on America Star Books because they recently, according to a lot of people, they're a new company. However, they used to go under the name Publish America, and if you look up Publish America, you will find nothing but scam reports on them. They are one of the most notoriously scamming publishers out there. They parade themselves as a real publisher, yet they are just avoid them. Okay, let me tell you, they've been sued so many times, and that's why they changed their name, and lost every single time. So compared to the services they do, they only take a small royalty. But guess what? Their services are so bad that it's not even worth what goes into it. So the fine print is they pay you twice a year in February and August, which is very common. 8% of the sales go for the first 500 copies, 12% for the next 15, 25% for the next 3,000. And after 5,000 copies have been sold, 50%. So now so basically you get, I believe this is what you get. So you only get 8% of your sales for the first 500, 12% of it for the first 1,500. Anyway, long story short, even if you sell over 5,000 copies, you're still only getting 50% of your royalties. And they've already made their money back in editing plus a ton. Avoid America Star Books. The next one was requested by a member of the group, and that's Page Publishing. at pagepublishing.com. They're definitely a vanity publisher, but from everything I could find, they're not a scam. They're actually one of the ones that are not bad. They are large, and so they're actually not accepting all the submissions. They get something like 1,500 or 2,000 book submissions a month, and they only accept 800 or something like that. I didn't write down the exact numbers, but it's they don't accept all the books. And that's unlike a lot of vanity publishing. And that actually shows a lot. That actually shows that they may, sometime in the near future, change their business model to actually be a legit publisher. As of last year, it will cost an upfront fee of an average of $3,200 over 10 months. So over 10 months, it's going to cost $3,200 for you to publish them. And that includes everything, though. That includes editing, formatting, and cover design. The thing is, there was no reports on how good their editing was, how good their cover design was, how good all that was. So you can say, wow, I only paid $3,200, but how good was it? And they do not guarantee distribution to brick and mortar stores. So in other words, even though you publish with them, and they say they'll get you in Barnes and Noble, and they'll get you in Barnes and Noble is really the only one left. They'll get you on their website, but that doesn't mean that they're actually going to get you in the store. And that's pretty common, so that's not a big deal. And those who do claim scam are because the amount of money it costs up front isn't really publicized on the website. Until you actually start making a deal with them, that's when you actually find it out. The website says, okay, here's one thing that was not legit about them. The website actually says that they take no money from you. That's only true until they make back, or until you make back your $3,200. So once you hit that $3,200 mark of your sold books, they then take 20 cents per book. That roughly equals about 10% to them. So it's not a whole lot. It's actually a good model. If they were upfront with this, and they could actually be more upfront with this, I think that it would be a legit model that you could count on. Unfortunately, it looks like to publish with them, no matter what, even if your book is spotless, you still have to pay them upfront the $3,200. And that kind of goes back to it's vanity publishing, so you have to pay them. Again, they're not a scam, but they're definitely not. They're not a scam, but they're definitely not a traditional publisher. Next, we have an author service, and this is a website. This is a services that I actually love. I've never used them. I've never paid for them, but they provide so much free content. They provide so much free for the reader, for a writer, that I just had to mention them here. And that's BookBaby at bookbaby.com. They're actually very old compared to pretty much any of these other vanity publishing, and they were vanity publishing at one time, but it seems that they have transitioned to become author services now, and they even call themselves that. They no longer call themselves a publisher, and I think that's pretty cool. They're very upfront with everything. They tell you upfront, this is what it's going to cost, this is what you get. This is what it's going to cost, this is what you get. That's it. I already said that. The packages can be anything from just sending your manuscript in and getting an ebook file back, and so you can self-publish, all the way up to and including providing that distribution for you. What's important in this is that the book is actually still yours. They don't have any rights. They are a services, so they keep 100%, or you keep 100% royalties, 100% rights. They also provide you with, if you do distribution through them, they provide you with sales count, and that's something that not a lot of publishers do. The only, like, vanity publishing and traditional publishing will hide your sales numbers from you, because a lot of times they don't want you to realize how much money they're actually earning compared to how much money you're earning. Due to the amount of services offered, I didn't actually get like an amount, but they seem pretty competitive. I think it was $300 to take your manuscript, format it, and get it ready for print on demand, which that's not too bad. A traditional publisher would do it included in a package, but vanity publishers, I've seen them charge like $1,200 for just that, and BookBaby charges $299, so that's not too bad. And the last thing about BookBaby is they get very little in the way of negative reviews online. Across all the websites I was looked at, they get an average of 4 stars. So that's really good. Anything above 3 stars for publishing and everything is really good. So if you do need if you do need services and you don't want to go through Steam Powered Dreams, because we offer all that and more, sorry, plug. BookBaby is probably my choice. If I can't do something in Steam Powered Dreams, I would refer them to BookBaby. So I do put my confidence into BookBaby.com. All right, a quick list of publishers on the top publishers to avoid list. I'm just going to go through these real quick. Again, in the chat, if there's anything that you want to ask about a specific one, drop it in there, or tell about a specific one. I didn't do any research on these. I just got the names. All right, so American Book Publishing is number 1. Arch Books Publishing, Helm Publishing, Hillard and Harris Publishing, Oak Tree Press. Oak Tree Press was actually a legit press 10 years ago, so I'm not really sure what happened to them. I have a book by them, and I was really surprised to see them on this list. I knew an author who published with them. Park East Press, Publish America, as I already said, Royal Fireworks Press, Silk Label Books, Sterling House Publisher, and Sterling House Publisher has a ton of sub-publishers. They're called imprints. Including Pemberton Mysteries, Eighth Crow Books, Cambrian House Books, Blue Caroline House Books, Dove House Books, and Padja Books. There's also the Strategic Book Publishing Company and the Eloquent Books, who are the same company and a big scam, formerly known as the Literary Agent Group and AEG Publishing. AEG Publishing was around. They started around the same time as BookBaby, and I always knew they were no good. And the last one on this list was Whitmore Publishing. I am going to drop a link in the comments as well as on the Writers Helping Writers group for more information on some of these publishers. Last thing before we go to Q&A is, if a publisher approaches you, most likely it's a scam. If they're charging you thousands of dollars to publish their book, to publish your book, it's a scam. If they are looking at charging you for distribution and they're not an author services, it's probably a scam. These are all good to avoid. If you ever think that if you ever get an offer from a publisher, you need to know for sure, Google it. Or go on Writers Helping Writers group on Facebook and find me and ask me, and I will help you determine if it's a legit group, legit publisher or not. So with that said, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to open it to Q&A. So I'm going to read over the comments that are already on there. I see we have a good amount. So let me do that first. But if you have any questions, go ahead and start asking them now. All right. So let's see. Strange Luck. Word count. He's done, or he or she, I'm sorry, it doesn't say, did research on word counts recently and found those numbers kind of all over the place. Yeah, word counts, they're less important nowadays, like I said, because of ebooks, and even print on demand costs are so low that there's not much of a difference between printing a 100,000 word book as opposed to a 120,000 word book. I've looked into it for Steam Powered Dreams and costs, and I know 140,000 word book still only costs about $6 to publish. So and I think it was my 50,000 only costs $1 less. So word count is becoming less and less of a requirement for publishing, but for publishing houses who still do in-house printing, it's still an issue. Let's see here. Strange Luck also said one thing to avoid, and I just saw a television commercial for one of these publishing companies, is to buy a starter kit for self-publishing. These kits I've seen to run into the thousands of dollars. Great point. Actually, I forgot about publishing kits because that's something that is a newer concept. And what publishing kits are, Strange Luck actually answered. Basically, from what I can tell, these kits have nothing more in them that you can learn in groups like mine or doing your own research. And that's exactly true. They'll provide you with ebooks. They'll provide you with resources. But and like you said, they cost into the thousands. Some people are willing to pay that for your information all in one place. But honestly, look for an online course. If you want to make sure it's legit, look for an online course through an author or through a publisher. That's much better, and you're only going to probably pay upwards of anywhere between $25 to $1,000, depending on the publisher, depending on the author, to get way better information, and a lot of times resources too. There are some self-publishing kits that come with things like ISBNs, access to editing services, which I'm going to talk about in another video, and things like that. And those, they're as long as they're not too expensive, they can be legit. But for the most part, I totally agree. Avoid self-publishing packages or starter kits. Sorry. Let's see. We have a member who says Page Publishing is begging to publish her book. Well, Page Publishing, again, they are a company who will charge you almost $4,000 up front and then start taking money from you later. So, Strange Luck added that edx.org is a great place to a resource for finding certified and non-certified courses through great institutions like the Smithsonian and universities. That's great. I actually never knew that. And also, again, if you have a publisher you can trust, or an author you can trust, a lot of times you'll be able to find very, very high-quality courses through them, too. Let's see. Jody asks, do most publishers publish in ebook first, then in print after book does well? What determines that they will print in books? That is a really good question, and I think it's an ever-changing question. It used to be that a publisher would print in physical book first, and if it did well, they would publish in ebook. But because we have well over 50% of our book sales nowadays coming from ebooks, it's actually flipped, and there's also less overhead in ebooks. I don't think it's quite got to the point where a publisher will publish only in ebook, because they're not sure if it's going to sell well, because print on demand really changed the game also. So the only reason a publisher would print your book in ebook only first is because that's what they deal in. Like for Steam Powered Dreams, during the first 6 months of publishing, we are going to only deal in ebooks. That's not to say that the Steam Powered Dreams cannot give you a physical book for your own. Actually, that's part of the contract. But we will not sell physical books right off the bat. You keep the rights to your physical books. So if you actually wanted to look into print on demand on your own, you could actually do that too. And that's just because for Steam Powered Dreams, starting up, we thought that it would be better to focus on one medium and then grow from there. I anticipate 6 months or less before we'll be dealing in physical books as well. Is there any more questions about this or anything with publishing? I know we're running really late, and I didn't expect to talk this long. It's I always have so much to say. I really do, and that's exactly, like I said before, that's exactly why I created Writers Helping Writers and Steam Powered Dreams. I am going to check a few other places to make sure there's no comments. Let's see. Okay. Looks like we might have some comments. Maybe not. Let's see. No. All right. So yeah. Okay. So Strange Luck said that is very important to look at in dealing with contracts. The publisher's claims of usage rights. Yeah. So again, you have so many rights to your books, and this is something that actually just there was a huge debate over this now that indie writers came out, because authors never realized that there were different rights for ebook as compared to physical, as compared to audio, as compared to in Spanish or in German, in Germany. Now, something to specify: just selling it in a different country is not a different right. It has to be translated to that language. But yeah, most publishers will try to take all of your rights. So you got to be very careful about that. So Marie asked, if we have more questions, can we contact you on your page or in the group? All of the above, as well as adding me directly on Facebook. And I'm more than willing to chat with anybody about this. You can contact me through Steam Powered Dreams page. You can contact me through the Writers Helping Writers group on Facebook. And like I said, you can even add me on Facebook and we can chat. So Jody asked, why won't publishers pick up books that have been self-published? Well, there was a time where being self-published was considered being tainted. And this is becoming less and less true. It's actually becoming more common to see authors who say, yeah, a publisher wanted to pick up my book that I self-published. And a lot of times an author won't want that. A lot of times an author will be like, I put in all this work. I did all the editing. You know, I'm getting sales. Why would I want a publisher to take over now and do none of the work when I've done it all? So now it's kind of changed hands because publishers used to be like, ew, yuck, indie published book. But now it's like, oh, this book is a bestseller. We want it. And now the indie published book or indie published author is like, I don't want you. So it's kind of a flip there. And also, like Strange Luck said, is a publisher will want something original over something that's already been published because you know, they can hype it up and a lot of things. So a quick story, and this is something that I cannot tell my source for this, and it's kind of a very little known fact, but I'll share it anyway. There was a book, indie published book, and this is before ebooks actually. This person indie published it, the author indie published it with his parents' money, and the book is Aragon. I forgot the author's name. Paolini was his last name. Anyway, the first Aragon book was actually self-published, and he actually spent the money to go around on his own book tour and sell his own book and distribute his own book. Him and his parents did all the work. Well, a publisher picked up on this during his tour and was like, you have a good story here, but you know, we think we can make it better if you sign a deal with us. So, you know, this kid, he was, I think, 18 at the time, 17, and he was excited. He's like, yeah, of course. Well, apparently, about 80% of the book was changed between the time he self-published it to the time it came out as a professional book. And if you've ever seen, how can I say this delicately? If you've ever seen the Aragon movie and read the book, then you know that Paolini tends to be more about the money than the art. And I say that very, very carefully because, you know, there's a lot of people who are like that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but, you know, you can see how much rights he gave up for his movie, and it turns out it also happened with his book. So the reason I told that story is actually because the publisher was like, we want 10% of your book, and we're going to change the rest. So that kind of gives you an idea of what a publisher might do if they take your book. Even a book that's selling good might do if you have an independently published book and they take it. I mean, it won't always happen like that. A lot of times they want the whole thing, and then they'll just change little things here and there to make it their own. Again, because all publishers have their internal niche things that they want their book to be. But it does happen. Why don't publishers like to publish new authors? It's just taking a chance on them. Small and medium press are more likely to take a new author than big business press, big press, because you know, smaller, they have more room to wiggle, I guess you could say. And also, if you're willing to put out more money up front, again, then they're more willing to work with you. It's also very important that I'm saying this twice again. I'm saying this again because it is so important. It's important for you to have a social reach. If you have as little as 1,000 people following you because of your writer on social media, you're vastly more likely to get a publisher than if you have 0. Having a mailing list of 1,000 people is even more so. And also, Strange Luck added that new authors often are full of time-consuming questions for publishers, and they're not publishers not and aren't up to speed on industry standards, risk, and everything like that. By the way, thanks to his message, I found out that Strange Luck is actually, I never is it pronounced Pael? I'm sorry. I think that's what it is. And anyway, so Pael is a publisher of short stories and such for the I am just I know the acronym. What is it called? I Must Be Hallucinating Publishing. So definitely check him out. He's in here, and he said he'd help out and answer questions and everything. So that's great. Thank you for being in here, and thank you for both answering questions and asking questions. Take one or two more if there's anything. Oh, it is Paul. My bad. I looked it up online, believe it or not, and everywhere said Pael. So I was like, I'll just call him that. But all right. Any last-minute questions before we end this? We're now over almost a full hour of content here. So one more question maybe, if there's any. If not, then I'm going to end it here. And the next live on the 1 week from today, we're going to have a September Q&A earlier this month because I'm going to be out of town. The normal time that I do it, I will be out of town from the 18th to the 25th. So we're going to have the Writers Helping Writers Q&A this next week. If you have any questions for that, if you have any questions at all about anything, it could be anything about writing, publishing, marketing, anything in between, ask it. You know, again, you can do it through Steam Powered Dreams. You can do it through Writers Helping Writers. You can even reach out to me, add me on Facebook, and talk there. And ask me questions, and any questions that I feel are going to be a good fit for the Q&A, I will keep, and we'll go from there. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and I'll see you next week. And, of course, I'll always see you online in the Writers Helping Writers group. Also, just, you know, to promote myself a little bit, again, my publishing company is Steam Powered Dreams. We are accepting inquiries now. So if you go to steampowereddreams.com, you can click Publish with us and submit your inquiry, and we will get a hold of you sometime by the end of October to let you know if we're interested in having you publish. Having you published with us. Have a great night, and I'll see you next week.